always has been.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm Sherry Schreiner. Give me a shout out in the chat room if you can hear me. I don't know if I'm going to have problems tonight or not. I'm hoping I don't. And so, a couple things I want to talk about tonight. You know, it's kind of still in halftime here. We're in the interim, and the painful interim for the last 11 months. So we're still here, but we're getting somewhere, and I'm going to talk about that tonight. What we've been seeing, and I've been telling you about Trump, was that he was the placeholder between the seventh regime and the eighth regime. And the seventh regime representing the New World Order cabal, and it including the United States, Great Britain, the Queen, the Pope, and Saudi Arabia. And so, and pretty much a lot of the other nations of Europe that have been in the background. But with the Bushes, you had oil interests. And the vice presidency of the United States up to that point has always taken over the drug trade. And so Point Cheney would be back in the Bush administration. Cheney would have been in charge of the drug trade while Bush was pushing his oil interests. Cheney was also into the oil interests as well. And they pulled in the oil king, Saudi Arabia. And then you also had the Queen and the Pope. I mean, this is the real trilateral commission, folks, was the Pope, Queen, USA. That was the real triangular for the triangle, but that's coming to a bust. And so that, I told you because the Lord stood me up back in 2002, 2003 to start warning people of the New Age alien agenda that was coming in. Boy, you talk about back then, there was maybe a couple of UFO sites on the internet. That was it. MUFON and the government was still killing off UFO witnesses and abduction witnesses. And, now it's prevalent. Now you can mention shapeshifter, clone, synthetic. Everybody knows what you're talking about. So you can see where we've progressed. I mean, back then, 15 years ago, everybody thought I was crazy. Now everybody's stealing my stuff. So, yes, we have progressed. At least it's progressing. So, we've had the last four, and they're going to be the most memorable, besides Nixon. He was a real scumbag. And I don't care if you Michigan people are in love with him or Ford or whatever. Starting with Ford. Ford, Nixon, and then you can jump. Reagan was okay. Bush Sr. is where it really began. And the only thing wrong with the Fords and the Nixons was the pedophilia. But then when you got to Bush Sr., it was almost like Satan himself sitting in the White House, taking over the country. Because Bush Sr., he was never, I don't even think he was ever born in the USA. I think that was hidden away because he was adopted from Germany, and he wasn't the blood son of his parents, and neither was Obama. Obama had Marshall Davis. So, they always mix things up to keep everybody confused and down the red trails. But, back then Bush had a green light because you couldn't tell a Christian that Bush wasn't a Christian. Oh, wait a minute. We saw him go into church. Wait, he just quoted scripture. And you bring out all the scriptures Hitler used to quote. Hitler was quite a Bible quoter, so Satan. But they wouldn't hear it. Christians hated you if you told them Bushes weren't Christians. They hated you. It took a lot of removing sand to get Christians to wake up about how evil skull and bone societies were, how evil the Masons were, secret societies in general, owned and controlled by Lucifer. And Christians just took so long to wake up and pull out of that. In the meantime, the Bushes got away with everything. And they corrupted the whole country in ways you can't even begin. I know everybody wants to blame Obama, but it goes before that because Bush laid the framework for that. Bush laid the framework for all the damage Obama would do later. It was the Bush who laid the framework. Trust me on this. Bush here. And so then you had Clinton come in, and he makes the Bushes look like choir boys. Now, Bush Jr., he just was an alcoholic in office. He didn't make any decisions. He was like Obama. I think Obama makes more decisions now that he's out of office than he ever did when he was in office. He had no control in office. He would sit in his room or his penthouse in Georgetown while Valerie Jarrett and everybody ran the White House, and Hillary Clinton acted like she was the president running the White House from the State Department. He had no say in anything. And so now it's almost amusing that now that he's out of office, and I'm not sticking up for him, y'all know I can't stand him, but he gets the blame for everything. I think we should find the people and put the blame where it belongs, and instead of just he's a character. He's a target because he's not human. He's just a clone they prop up, like Hillary. We started getting these characters, Bush had like 8 clones. Obama had 12. Bush was never fit to be seen in public or go on international tours. Maybe not an apology tour like Obama did, but Bush wasn't fit for office. And neither was Obama. But Obama had wanted to run the world and open bank accounts everywhere, and so on the guise of that, he went on a world apology tour and a butt kissing tour to Arabs and open bank accounts everywhere it went. And everyone's wondering, hey, where's all this money gone that we had? Well, yeah, look at Obama's offshore account. He had them everywhere. But one of the things that because this whole cabal is going down, that's why I'm just kind of reminiscing. This whole structure is going down. It's going to be history, and that's what you're seeing now because they're rounding them up. They're rounding them up, and it's going to be over with. But I want to open your eyes to what's coming, because if you think these guys were worse than what's coming, you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen anything yet. All right, so we had the years of the Bush, and then the years of the Clintons, and then the disastrous years of the Obamas, and everybody was sure that everything would be over in 2012. That Nibiru was coming in. There's over 200 million beings on Nibiru, folks. And everyone for sure was coming in, and things were going to be destroyed. And I remember end of November 2012, everybody expected it. So what do we have this year? We have end of November, and people are expecting Nibiru again. It's kind of like a repeat, We're starting another cycle of here comes Nibiru. It wasn't so strong last year. A little bit stronger this year because of the craziness going on in the skies. But the crazier it gets, the more they hide it with the deep cloud covers and the chemtrails. No, I don't feel a pole flip coming. It's set. It's anytime soon. But like I said, the winter time, nothing happens in the winter. I mean, seriously. And it's usually about planning, reaping and sowing, planning and harvesting. And in the winter months, it's like recess time. Only with the New Age agenda, they like their pagan Christmas Day so that they could try to make an arrival point out of that, be the Star of Bethlehem and come in that time. And so they like that holiday. And so I always have to keep that open. So I can't hibernate and go to completely to sleep in the winter time, because at the end of December, they always have their heyday plans. And this year won't be any different. In fact, this year, they're probably a little bit stronger than last year, but only because their time's running out. See, they were supposed to come in and have everything set by September of this year, and they're bogged. They're boggling for some reason. It's taking them longer to take down the other regime, because you run into psychological operations to conditioning people. They're going through the psychology of taking out the deep state and taking out the pedophiles and admitting to people, okay, the conservatives were right, the liberals are Satanists, and they're guilty criminals, and we're taking them to prison. Basically what it is, folks. They won't say we were right. They'll just say, okay, the Clinton Foundation was laundering money, embezzling, extortion, bribing, stealing, whatever. They're going to take down the deep state, and she represents the deep state. She represents everybody. Everybody did everything in her name, her and Bill Clinton's name. They just operated behind those two. They were both operatives of the CIA. That's what happens when you work for the CIA. And most people in Washington work for the CIA, or they're a Jesuit, or they're NSA. Everybody's lined with somebody. You don't just get in those positions without answering to somebody. So one of the things that always drove me nuts, and I wish they would just relax about Iran and the Middle East. Iran has never toppled a government in 100 years. They've never gone to war. I'm not sure what that Iran-Iraq war thing was in the 80s, but they certainly weren't trying to overtake Iraq. There was something going on, because then the Russians went in there and tried to get what the Iranians couldn't, and they couldn't either. And so then here comes the United States. But with Iran and Iraq, it had, I think it was that Eridu Gate. I'm not sure. I can't even say. But usually what they tell the public is totally bogus. And one of the first things they did when they went in and under Bush Sr. was get control of that Eridu Gate. Remember I told you that Lucifer had a portal into the Garden of Eden area. Well, the Garden of Eden was over by the Garden of Eden, but he settled over by the Persian Gulf and the ancient city of Babylon over there, and they had a portal. Well, apparently this gate over there. That's probably the portal that Lucifer used at the time to access Earth. Because remember, I told you don't just take a plane and fly to Earth. It's heavily covered, and so there's certain portal access points that you can use, and that's what Lucifer used and them used. And so I think that's what they got control of over there in Eridu, the Eridu Gate. So ancient stuff, folks. Anyway, it's interesting, but one of the things they've always done was felt that they should be the ones interpreting Bible prophecy. And it's hard enough for students of Bible prophecy to understand and get things straight in the right order and stuff. So imagine when you have Satanists, like the Masons, like Helen and Billy Graham and all the Masons, interpreting Bible prophecy for the politicians. Because it's like they have blinders on. They're not led by the Holy Spirit. And so one of the things they've always been stuck on, and it's painfully obvious, is the war, the Ezekiel war of 37 and 38 about the king of the south pushing at Israel. And so Israel Satanists are always scared to death. Oh, Iran's coming. Iran's going to be the kings of the south. And that's one of the things I've been trying to kick in the butt for several years, is that war does not happen this side of the millennium. Iran is not pushing to Israel. Iran is not going to bomb Israel. It is not a conspiracy. They are not interested in Israel, but the Masons want them to be. I don't know why. They either can't interpret prophecy, or they just need a boogeyman so Israel can have some kind of excuse to beat up on Palestinians over there that do nothing to them. There's not real Jews in Israel, folks. There might be a handful. And they beat up on those Palestinians like they're inhumans. It's just crazy what goes on over there. The church turns a blind eye to it. They're fake Jews, or Khazarians. Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 talks about the fake Jews. And so they started up again. They still started up. Relax. I'm telling you. Back off. Back off. Because you've interpreted it all wrong. I don't know why the Masons always think they have to be Bible fulfillers. They always want to be the ones to fulfill prophecy. It's like they set it up so that they can try to be the fulfillers of it. Just give it up. Let it go. Time itself will fulfill Bible prophecy. Iran is not going to be blowing up Israel anytime soon. It's not this side of the millennial reign. In other words, you won't be alive. It's 1,000 years away. It's 1,000 years away, if not longer. So get off the Bible prophecy interpretations. You don't know what you're interpreting. Leave Iran alone. So, anyway, Trump's in the middle of all this mess. They needed somebody who was neutral, somebody to come in and be the placeholder between the ending of one regime and the building up of this one that's coming in. And so Trump was the perfect candidate because he was probably a Democrat, but because he wasn't very conservative. I think he's probably more conservative leaning now than he ever was before, because he was never very religious. He was like that rich man in the Bible that had everything but didn't need God. And now I think he's turning towards God a little bit. And so, I can't speak for the man, but there's a difference with him. Anyway, he was the one that was chosen because he didn't have ties to either one. He put his money everywhere like most rich people do. They have their backs covered no matter who's in. That's old strategy, business strategy. So whoever gets in office, you help them with their campaigns, and then they help you with your contracts and your building permits and stuff like that. He probably learned a lot with the mafia in New York. I don't know. So anyway, he was the one to come in and sit here and steer it. Just hold the ball in the court while everybody else did the cleanup around them. And that's what's happening now. You've got the everybody going down, the state going down, the journalists will go down with them. And so in the meantime, you had the neutral Bush, and you set up a third party, so to speak. You set up a third truth movement, the truthers. We were all out there anyway. Can you guys hear me, or is it still stuttering real bad? You guys are screaming and stuttering. You can hear me. All right. Oh, okay, here we go. So you set up alternative routes, because when the main one goes down, you need something to take its place. And that's where Alex Jones comes in, and all that money that was put into InfoWars and that whole setup, and the libertarians, and they're propping up that Ben Shapiro, and I don't know who else is, Lisa Havens, she's one of them, and they prop up their own truthers so that when the liberals go down, there's not such a huge vacuum. Nobody watches them. Who watches them? Who watches the liberals? I don't spend 2 seconds watching liberal news because they just lie to you. They lie. And so anyway, but they still have their bases covered because the Koch brothers are the ones behind pumping all the money into the truthers. And who are they? Serpent State, Khazarians, Mossad, Israeli intel. I mean, come on. They still have their hand in everything. They were the ones pumping the New World Order cabal, the Bushes and Cheneys, the whole oil thing. That was the Khazarian. You want to know where half the money of this country goes to? Look at Israel. Look at Israel. Billions. What do they do with it? This state is like the size of New Jersey. And yet we pump billions into that place. And they steal billions. They use that money to control Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia isn't real Arabs. Saudi Arabia is Khazarians. Israel is Khazarians. It's a zoo everywhere, folks. So this regime's going down, and here comes the new one. Now, I didn't talk about it on my show a couple weeks back, but there was a vampire. I don't know what they call it, a plague. How do you have a plague of vampires? They just exist. But there was vampires in Malawi and Mozambique because they always test this stuff out. Everything evil, sinister, demonic. They always test it out in Africa first. You ever notice that? Like when they had the zombie outbreaks and stuff, and they were trying to find the trigger for zombie outbreaks here in America, they would test them out in Africa first. And so Africa is no stranger to zombie outbreaks, zombie plagues. Well, one of the things that's going to be memorable about the New World Order cabal and this whole regime that's going down, the deep state, is that everything was done in secrecy. Everything was done hidden. And Obama came to power, he was screaming transparency. And that appealed to a lot of people. He appealed to a lot of people with all of his lies. But that's going to be the difference, I think, between the cabal and this new regime coming in, because this new regime, with the veil being lifted, is going to be one of transparency. They can't hide anything. And so these plagues that are coming out, all the plagues we've had, bubonic plague, black plague, all these huge, that has wiped out millions and millions. Remember what the Bible says about the last days and the pale horse rider? Plagues. Famine, wars, wipe out a third of mankind, 2/3 of mankind. Extraterrestrials are the ones the ones who orchestrate and implement these plagues on mankind. You know, that's just the way it is. It's just that's why they call them. I can't remember the term they use, but they're not plagues from this earth. And they have a term they use for that because they're brought in by ET. And they're putting our chemtrails and our vaccines and our flu shots. Stay away from that stuff, folks. Stay away from vaccines. Stay away from flu shots. Because when this next regime comes in and all the New Agers, they think, oh, it's going to be peace and prosperity. Transparency is going to be one word because they're not even going to hide anything. They don't have to. They're already in power. When they come in and get set up, right now they're making boogeymen and criminals out of the New World Order cabal, the pedophiles. It's something they always demanded. I mean, to be a politician, you had to have material that you were blackmailed on. You had to be blackmailable, or you weren't going to get in Congress because they wanted a way to control you. And so they would set these men up with children. And the thing that happened was they got hooked on it, They used it as a blackmail technique. But the men got addicted to it. And so then our country began to have a problem with pedophilia. The Satanists got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger in numbers, the 1% elite, under the Bushes and the Obamas and the Clintons. And they got really brazen and emboldened on it. And they felt that the more sacrifices they had, they would see their agenda rise to the top. And so they were leaving the White House like noon. It was like their lunch hours, whatever. They didn't work 9 to 5s. I'm not saying they did, but I'm not saying. Well, what I am saying is that they spent a lot of time leaving their offices to go to what they had in D.C. at the time was a temple to Satan, and they would go and they would sacrifice to it during the day. And they did this constantly. And the more the more they did it, the more people they needed. They were spending billions on underground bases. They had one at the Pentagon. They had one under the White House. They have one under Arlington somewhere. I believe that's the one the Congress people go to, the little subway station underneath their Capitol and go right over to Arlington. But it just demanded more and more and more and more and more. And so that's why we're seeing such an increase in involvement in the Pentagon with child trafficking and satanic rituals. Satanic ritual sacrifice and pedophilia. It got huge. It got huge. Under Obama and Hillary's reign, I mean, it was crazy. That's why I started to really get involved with the whole child trafficking thing. Y'all remember Tory Smith, and he was sounding the alarms on it. And, you know, the drain got really bad in D.C. And the worse it got, the more Tory Smith would sound the alarms. And then when Mike Pence was pegged to be vice president and run with Trump, Tory Smith got poisoned and died. So you put two and two together, folks. You've got the king of the swamp as vice president. It's not Trump, it's Pence. He is the king of the swamp, and that is Trump's nemesis because he's his VP. And then he's also got Paul Ryan in the House. I mean, and he doesn't have any help in the Senate either. Paul Ryan was handpicked by the Pope, and so still shows a lot of control with the Pope and the Queen over U.S. politics because everybody pieces and parcels out what they own and control between the Queen and the Pope. If America wants to be greater, Grand America has to take control of itself away from the Queen and the Pope, period. I think Trump will get that far because either way, it's all going to go to the UN. All the countries of the world are going to be owned by the UN. That's what's coming. This new regime coming, it's going to be dictatorial control from the United Nations. Dictatorial control. And it's going to be very transparent. They don't care what you think of them. Instead of being secret abductions, they're just going to pull you up off the street. They're going to have the little UFOs all over the place. I had visions of this already. There's going to be UFOs, and you know how they cloak and they disappear and then they're invisible? Now they're just going to be visible. They don't care. They're just going to abduct you off the streets, off the parks, highways, whatever. The Bible talks about, what is that passage in Isaiah about the highways and deserts being emptied, whatever. There's a passage in regards to it that alludes to it. In modern day, it would be our highways becoming empty places. Because people are going to be afraid of these UFOs. They're going to be afraid of them. They're just going to zap people. They're just going to take you. 10 to 21. Yeah, this is more like the UFO version, the alien version. People think Agenda 21 is, and it is, with the UN killing people off, but they haven't seen what's coming yet from space. They haven't seen that one yet. And, you know, we've got a few things to kick off this new regime coming. There will be a pole flip. That's when the pole flip will happen. I'm not feeling that right now. Maybe March, April, May. I'm not feeling it now. When that happens, the whole the sixth seal will occur sometime around that. Maybe that's what I'm feeling. I always felt the sixth seal in May. The pole flip probably, maybe it's earlier, maybe it's at the same time. I don't know. But I was feeling the pole flip. In fact, I was pretty darn sure it was August, September, October, and then it got pushed back. So what do I know? You know, even I get told no, forget it, not now. Even I get told that. So if they arrived in December with their little Bethlehem star imagery, oh, Jesus is coming on Christmas. It's not Jesus, folks. It's not. That's a fake one. I'm hoping. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me waving the flag saying, time out, time out. Let us get through the wintertime. Because nobody wants to be without electric and cold in the northern states in the wintertime. But I seriously don't feel it anyway for January and February. It's always a spring and harvest and reaping and sowing thing, folks. Always, over and over and over again. So if I have to follow patterns, then that's the pattern I'm sticking to. Except for this little wild card thing, which is their arrival, which can be anything. I mean, that's not necessarily part of a pattern. To them coming in, you know, they're gonna come in. But yeah, you can kiss transparency goodbye at that point because the veil's gonna be lifted. No one's gonna be able to stop these evil beings. You know, right now they have some kind of semblance of power because they're taking out the evil ones. The New Order cabal, the Bushes, the Clintons, them. Try to set themselves up like they're going to be righteous. That's what the joke is. That's where the joke is. Because It's like hell itself arriving, establishing itself. It's like right now, Lucifer's had his city underneath the Vatican all these years since like the century of the Egyptians and wandering in the wilderness. Is when he was building his empire over in the hills of Italy where they have the Vatican now. He's been over there all this time, and he comes up and he has his own golden throne that they set up in the Vatican, and they have their own little private meetings over there and stuff. Yeah, you can just imagine he's gonna just completely take over the Vatican. He already owns it, but you know what I'm saying. People will see him. That's what I'm saying. People will see it. They won't be calling people like me crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. So we're kind of in the interim, folks. We're in the interim. People want to know about the elect leaving. Whatever. I don't know. I'm not feeling anything. That's the thing. So I've been off playing some other distractions instead of spinning the wheels on, because the red listers are just going down for now, and they wanted us to think that we were the red list, those big mouthers and truthers. I told you it was them. I told you it's them, and they're going down. And so we all get to sit back with our cup of coffee and whatever, kick our feet up and wait for the hell to hit us, because right now it's just hitting them. It ain't gonna hit us. The Lord's gonna protect us. But you know what I'm saying. So they all get rounded up. That's all we're watching now, folks. So I assume that that's going to happen over the next couple of months, and everyone's waiting for the currency. The currency is tied into the event. If you, depending on who you listen to, because they can't even make up their minds. They're going to do it first, and then they always say they're going to arrive first, and it's going to be the currency eval. So that's what they say. But then everybody else will say, oh no, it's already happening. It's already happening in the banks. The first tiers are already cashing their dinars, and, whatever. You have to wonder, the first tier has, because I know a first tier in Australia that cashed out, I think last year. In America, nothing's happened that I've heard of. And everything's hush, 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 because the little people in Australia who had any kind of foreign currency, theirs haven't revalued. So I don't know what's going on with that. I always watch it, but, I've been listening and watching the same crap since 2012. And it's now 2017, and all you do is hit the repeat button. So they'll be hyping it. Oh, by Thanksgiving. Oh, yes, by Thanksgiving. Oh, no, by Christmas. Oh, by January 1st, because they got to balance their books. They always go on and on. But they do have to get the groundwork laid for the new regime to come in. And so it's like it's laid, but they're not lifting the blanket off it for anybody to see it yet until they arrive. And so, whatever. They're just all the little plots and their little plans. And for some reason, we get stuck here waiting it out. Interesting news. This time back in the day, Noah was in the ark. Noah was getting pounded by water and rain. Yep. I think last week was the day the Lord shut the door on the ark. Last Monday, I believe it was. So Noah's in the ark, and he's floating, and it's pounding and raining. This is where we were back in the day, time frame wise. I like looking at the time frames. I don't know, it's just interesting. I'm not a history buff, but I am a Bible buff, and so I like to know the times we correlate with biblical events. I just find it interesting. So 180 days, I think, from the time Noah entered the ark until the time he got out again. It was like 6 months. So anyway, folks, all we're doing now is watching the Queen and the Pope sitting and watching their empire of the fake Jewish Arabs going down, which was part of the whole Vegas shooting thing, because that was two of the princes' private war against each other, and a lot of Americans got in the middle of it. But yeah, it was purposely co-aligned at the same time. All the time of sacrifice in front of Satan's penis, there in front of the obelisk, in front of the pyramid. It truly is just sick. People are sick. People are sick. Anyway, so the House of Khazars in Saudi Arabia goes down. Maybe it'll hit the Queen next? I don't know. Haven't heard of any Bushes being arrested or Clintons. And what about all the popes? What about all them? They've been the puppet masters. We'll see how far the rabbit hole's going to go and where it's going to stop on it, folks. Anyway, I'll be back on Wednesday at noon talking about some more news events going on. Don't forget to support this ministry. You can go to sherryschreiner.com and click on the donate page. Till Wednesday, everybody. Yeah, bless.